All right, we are going to start talking about unit rates. Unit rates are very similar to the equivalent ratios that we talked about yesterday, except it's going to have a factor of 1. So we want to find out how much one thing costs, how many he can do in 1 minute, how fast he can travel in 1 hour, and those kind of things. We always want to make sure, like, whenever we are talking to someone about how fast we got somewhere and someone says, oh, how fast are you going? We don't usually say that we do like 150 miles in 2 hours. We automatically change it into rates, like a unit rate. So saying like I went 75 miles per hour. I went 23 miles per hour. I ate 10 tacos in an hour, things like that. We're always going to have that factor of 1. So first off here we have Riley did 200. Whoop. I don't think my pin's on. Hold on. Turn on the pin. Okay. Riley did 200 sit-ups in 4 minutes. So first things first, we need to create our original ratio. And remember, this is where labeling is really, really important because this is going to help us keep track of the numbers that we're working with so we don't get confused. So our original ratio is going to be 200, ignore that line, I'm sorry, sit-ups in 4 minutes. I don't really want to write out minutes, so I'm going to say that. Now, we want to find out how many she did per minute. So that means we want to get this down to 1 minute, and we're creating an equivalent ratio that tells us this. So I know that in order to get from 4 to 1, I am dividing 4 by 4. What I do to the bottom, I have to do to the top. So that means we are going to be dividing 200 divided by 4. If you guys want to bring your calculator over for this, you can. So 200 divided by 4 gives us that nice even 50. So we know that she can do 50 sit-ups in 1 minute. Now do you see why labeling is so important? It just helps us keep track of the numbers. All right, next problem. Lily bought 3 pairs of shoes for $121. So first things first, we are setting up our original ratio. So we have 3 pairs. I'm just going to say pairs. I'm not going to write out pairs of shoes. For $121. Now, does it matter? Because in this particular case, we want to find out how much 1 pair is. So we are trying to get this to 1 pair. In this instance, does it matter if we have pairs on top or pairs on bottom? No. As long as we are maintaining that the pairs will always be on top and the dollars will always be on the bottom. Now, I know to get from 3 pairs to 1 pair, I have to divide by 3. So I need to do the same thing here. I'm going to divide by 3. All right, we're going to get our handy dandy calculator here. And we're going to say 121 divided by 3 gives me 40.33. So 1 pair of shoes cost $40.33. So this is our unit rate. Now, if it asked us to write it in, I guess I can go ahead and circle it since I started to anyway. Now, if it tells us to write it, if it's just asking how much 1 pair of shoes is, it's okay to write it like this. But if it specifically says what is the unit rate of this, unit rate, we're not going to write it as a fraction. We are just going to write this number here that's not 1. So for this instance, my unit rate is $40.33. In this one, my unit rate is 50 sit-ups. Okay. All right, so now let's talk about gas prices. So gas prices here, we have 4 gallons to $8.56. I want to find out how much 1 gallon of gas is. So my original ratio is going to be $8.56 to 4 gallons. I'm just going to write gal. Now we want to create a ratio where we are figuring out how much 1 gallon of gas is. Now remember, in order to do this, I am dividing by the same number because a number divided by itself will always be 1. So in this case, I am dividing by 4. What I do to one part of the equation, I have to do to the other. We have to keep things symmetrical. So that means we'll get our handy dandy calculator, and I'm okay with you guys using calculators on these. And we're going to say $8.56, and we are dividing it by 4. So that gives us $2.14. So that means in this gas station we're at, gas is $2.14 per gallon. So I can write that. See how it says here unit rate? It doesn't ask me for the fraction. It doesn't ask me for the ratio. It asks me for the unit rate. So I'm just going to write $2.14 per gallon. Okay. Now let's try this one here. So now I'm going to say $14.98 to 7 gallons. Okay, again, we want to get it to 1 gallon because we want to figure out the price per gallon. So we can get our calculator here and we can say $14.98 divided by 7 gives me a total ratio of $2.14. It's the same price. That's interesting. So my unit rate is $2.14 per gallon. Always make sure if the answer doesn't give this to you that you're writing in what it is per mile, per hour, per gallon. This is just a nice way for us to label and keep track of what we're doing. Also notice every time I'm writing this, I am writing the $sign to keep track of what I'm talking about in dollars, and I'm writing gallon. I abbreviated gallon to gal, but I'm still labeling it to help me keep track. Okay. All right. Now our final one we have is $19.26 for 9 gallons of gas. Now, again, I want to get it down to 1 gallon. And to do that, I'm going to divide. So we're going to say 1926 divided by 9 gives me that 214 again. This must all be the same gas station, it looks like. 214, and again my unit rate is $2.14 per gallon. Okay, make sure you guys have this written in your notes as well. Remember, we're writing this in our notebooks. All right, last one, printer to boxes of coffee paper. So I can purchase 10 boxes of copy paper for $299. I want to find out how much one box is going to be. So I'm going to start out with my ratio of $299 to 10 boxes. I'm just going to put box. And I want to figure out the cost of 1 box. So I'm going to get my calculator. I'm going to type in 299 divided by 10. This is also an easy one with 10. We could just move the decimal once, and we're going to get 29.90. So I'm going to put the $sign, 29.90. So my unit rate is 29.90 per box. All right, so now I have my ratio of $442.50 to 15 boxes. I guess I could add the ES, huh? And I want to figure out how much one box costs. So I'm going to grab my calculator and we're going to say 442.50 divided by 15 gives me a total price of $29.50. This one's a little bit different. Remember last one, all the prices wound up being the same. This one's a little different. $29.50. So we're getting it a little bit cheaper when we buy more. We're getting a 40 cents difference per box. All right, and finally now we have $703.75, but that is giving us 25 boxes, and I want to figure out how much one box costs. Okay. So we're going to get our whoops, I clicked off my calculator. We're going to get our calculator. We're going to say $703.75 divided by 25 because that's how many boxes we have. And we're getting $28.15. Even a little bit cheaper, huh? $28.15. And so our unit rate is $28.15 per box. Okay, so you want to make sure that you have all this written in your notebook, and then you can get started on your assignment that's posted on Schoology. If you need to come back and watch this again, you are more than welcome to.